Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. So the initial plan for this video was to calibrate my monitor using the Datacolor Spider X Pro. Datacolor actually sent this out to me and they didn't really ask for a review, they just wanted me to try it out and share my thoughts any way that I saw fit in one of my videos. So I thought it would be fun to just test it out while doing a Q&A. But the process itself took like no time at all, and before I even answered the first question, it was already done. So if you need to calibrate your monitors, go with the Datacolor Spider X Pro. It was crazy easy. I've never calibrated a monitor before, but it took no time at all, and yeah, everything worked great. So there's my, I guess, review of the Datacolor Spider X Pro. So with that out of the way, we can go ahead and answer some questions that you guys sent in on Instagram. Do you plan on shooting any Ektachrome 100 and 120? Absolutely. I pre-ordered a few rolls of this and they actually just came in the mail a couple of days ago, so you can expect a full video on that very soon. Do you hang your work up around you as you work on it? I did this a little bit years ago whenever I was working on my project on my hometown, but I haven't really done that since then. But now that I have a dedicated office space, I will probably go back to doing that method anytime I'm working on a personal project. If you've never done this before, I definitely recommend trying it out, even if it's not for a personal project. Just having photos laid out in front of you where you can move them around and really see all of the photos together as one piece of work, that definitely helps. I've seen some debate whether the price increase of Kodak film is good or bad. Your thoughts? Yes, the big Kodak price jump. This has been all over my Instagram feed and my Twitter feed, so I figured it would probably be worth talking about here on the channel, so I'm glad you asked this question. If you're unaware, as of January 1st, 2020, Kodak is going to see a price increase across all of their films all across the board. Now, I've seen reports stating that it's going to be 30% increase all across the board. Take that with a grain of salt because I don't know exactly how accurate that is. I haven't seen that price reflected on actual, storefronts like B&H Photo or Amazon. I haven't seen the price reflected that way, but there are supposedly confirmed reports that it's going to be a 30% increase all across the board, so that might be the case. Now, in Kodak's initial announcement or statement, whenever they were talking about this price increase, they mentioned that the film sales have been really, really great and that film sales are going up, and that's a really good thing, obviously, but in order to keep up with that demand, they've had issues with production, and a lot of places in the world, if you would go to buy some of their popular portrait films, it would be back ordered for weeks or sometimes months just due to the high demand. So Kodak states that their supplier is going to have to increase the capacity of their output in order to kind of keep up with demand, and in order to do that, it's going to cost a lot of money, and you and I, the consumers, we're going to have to see that reflected in the price and pay for that kind of increase if Kodak is going to continue to make money, which they're a business, so obviously they need to make money. Now, am I excited about paying more for Kodak film? Absolutely not. I would love to continue to pay the price that I've been paying and not have to pay anymore, but it just is what it is, and I'm going to have to. Is this going to make me shoot less Kodak film? No, it's not. I'm going to continue to shoot the same amount of Kodak film that I've been shooting. I'm going to continue buying it, and the thing is, I'm under some very specific circumstances. So for me, shooting film, talking about shooting film, sharing my results from shooting film, all of that is kind of my job now. So for me, it's what I have to do for my job, so I'm just going to continue doing it. But I'm obviously in the minority here. There are a lot of people out there who shoot film just as a side hobby kind of thing. They do it because they enjoy it. They're not making any money from it whatsoever, and that's pretty common. And for those people, this is definitely going to be something that affects them. If I didn't have this YouTube channel, if I didn't make a living from making photos, I would absolutely be shooting less after this price increases because it's just priorities. But the price increase means more films being produced, possibly more money going towards research and development for other film stocks, so we could see new film stocks or other previously discontinued film stocks being brought back. It's really hard to tell. We just have to rely on consumers to continue buying the film even after the price increase. I'm honestly not sure what's going to happen in 2020 for Kodak's film sales. I would naturally think that this is going to mean people are going to buy less film because they're going to have to pay more for it, but at the same time, I didn't really expect to see that many people buying the amount of film that they did in 2019 to begin with, so we'll see. We will see how many Tri-X and T-Max shooters end up buying Ilford products instead, that's for sure. How do you deal with mixed color temperature situations? I deal with this kind of mixed lighting on every single wedding that I shoot. I deal with it some at home as well, but at home I'm mostly shooting black and white film, so it doesn't really affect me as much. But on a wedding day, I'm constantly dealing with window light coming into the room, which is nice and clean, and then there is some just nasty overhead light or a lampshade with this really yellow kind of color cast that it's putting on everything, and then the DJ at the reception. It's just inevitable that you're going to run into a lot of different colors based on the light that you're working with. For me, since I'm usually shooting photos of people in these kind of situations and they are the subject of the photos, their skin tones are what I'm really most concerned with. So if I have somebody standing in a window and there's this nice daylight falling on them, I'm going to set my temperature to match that daylight, even if the rest of the room is in this kind of orange tungsten lighting. If I balance it to the daylight, that orange tungsten light is going to get even more exaggerated and really, really orange, but I would rather have the background, kind of fall under that than dealing with balancing for the tungsten light and then having really blue, cold, dead looking skin tones. Now when shooting film, it's obviously a little bit trickier because your temperature is baked into the film stock itself. You can't just change it on the fly like you can with a digital camera. That's why I tend to shoot with my digital camera in situations like that on a wedding day. And if I really want to shoot film whenever we're outside shooting photos of the bride and groom and the whole wedding party and we're in actual daylight, then I feel a lot more comfortable shooting film in that situation because it's much more controlled because it's all daylight. But under tungsten lighting, you can shoot something like Cinestill 800T, which is balanced for tungsten light, and you can get really, really clean, natural looking skin tones under really bad light. You're just going to have to be a little bit more deliberate with how you meter for the film and also just how that light is falling on your subject. For me, on a wedding day, everything is quick and crazy, and so I tend to just stick with digital because it kind of gets out of the way and I can focus on documenting versus, staging everything and taking up all the time of the day. But that's what I tend to do. If I'm working with mixed lighting, I just make sure my priority is on the subject and their skin tones, and that I'm getting good, natural, clean skin tones that I can get. And if anything else falls, then so be it. Do you show or teach photography to your children? I've never tried to get my kids into photography, although Elliot has started to show an interest, and he's only 3. He just turned 3 in November, but he's already carried my camera around a few times and has taken some photos that I actually really like. So it would be awesome if he does continue to, kind of have that interest and wants to take more photos with me. Obviously, I would love that. I would never push it on him and tell him he has to learn photography or he has to practice photography, anything like that. As I was growing up, my brother played every sport known to man, and none of that interested me. I was more interested in video games and paintball and skateboarding, which is funny because now those things are considered sports and they're making their way into big arenas and stuff like that. But I was just never interested in sports, and my parents were always super supportive and just letting me pursue whatever it was that I was actually interested in, and I didn't have to follow in anyone's footsteps. So obviously that's what I want to do for my kids as well, because I was so appreciative of that support from my parents. But yeah, if Elliot or Nora, even if they want to get into photography, I would be all for it. I'm just not going to be the one pushing that on them. How many lenses does one really need? This largely depends on whether or not you're making photos for a living and also what kind of subjects you're shooting. If you are just carrying a camera around with you and you're taking photos of your surroundings and the people you're hanging out with, then just one, absolutely. For several years, the only camera that I had was a Minolta XGM and a 50mm f1.4, and I used that combo to shoot absolutely everything. And this was really early on in photography for me, and for me it really helped me kind of develop a lot of just sort of my personal preferences, I think, in photography. It helped me figure out what kind of composition worked with that focal length and what didn't, what kind of subjects worked really well with the 50mm, and I just kind of naturally figured out what I liked and what I didn't like about that one lens. Whereas if I had every focal length between 24mm and 70mm, I'd probably be bouncing all over the place and I wouldn't be stuck with one thing. Not necessarily stuck, because that sounds like a bad thing, but I wouldn't be really intentional with one focal length. I would just kind of adapt on the fly, and I feel like I became a much more well-rounded photographer working with one lens rather than just having all of these options and not really being confident in which one to go with. My advice would be to stick with one lens for as long as you can. So either a 50mm or a 35mm. They're two different lenses, but they're close enough, and it's just a really good range that's pretty versatile for a lot of different subjects. Pick one of those two lenses and just stick with that for as long as you can. Really learn that focal length, figure out what it is you like about it and what you don't like about it, its strengths and weaknesses for the kind of stuff that you like to shoot, because there are a lot of rules out there that say, you can't shoot portraiture with a 35mm lens, or landscape isn't really cut out for 50mm. There are a lot of those kind of rules that you hear online with photography. Pick a lens and shoot everything with it. Figure out for yourself what you like about it and what you don't like about it. After you've stuck with one lens for a really long time, you're going to be able to figure out if you even need another lens, and if you do, you'll be able to figure out if you need something a little bit wider or maybe something a little longer. So before we wrap up, I want to take a minute to thank our sponsor today, which is Squarespace. You guys have heard me talk about Squarespace for a long time now. It's a great all-in-one platform to build an incredible looking website, and everything is super easy to use and customized to your needs. With all the different templates to choose from, it's incredibly easy, but if you ever need help with anything, they have 24/7 award-winning customer service. If you want to try Squarespace out with your own website, you can do so entirely free at squarespace.com, but if you're ready to get signed up, you can get 10% off your first purchase by going to squarespace.com/mattday. So thank you guys for sending in all the questions on Instagram. I really appreciate it. I hope the answers were helpful, or they at least got you thinking. That's kind of always been the goal. I hope you guys have been enjoying the holidays, spending time with friends and family. I know I have, and I am very excited for the new year. I do have one more video that's going to be up on New Year's Eve, and I'll be sharing my top 10 photos that I made in 2019. It's going to be really hard to pick, but I'm excited to share those and just kind of talk about what it is I like about each photo. But that's it for today. If you're new here, we have new videos every Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so if you're interested, definitely subscribe to the channel. But that's it for today. So thank you guys for everything. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Oh, and if you are curious at all about the hat that I'm wearing, stay tuned. January 1st, 2020. Very exciting.